Hi everyone, it's Paul from Alexander Knife Sharpening and Laser Engraving. So the other week I did a video of things to come out soon. And in that video I showed you guys a big box and I told you I had a laser in that I was getting ready to review and that I was pretty excited about it. I didn't even tell you the name or anything. And I admit, I was teasing you a little bit, but I'm even more excited now because I've been using it and I'm ready to share with you all the details about this amazing laser. So what I have to my right is the ComMarker B6 20 watt laser. And this laser is specifically designed to engrave metals. Now, why am I so excited about it? Well, I've told the story many times and I won't go into too much detail, but a few years back when I got into laser engraving, things like this, they just didn't exist. A fiber laser back then was around $8,000 to $10,000. And what had piqued my interest, which I've mentioned before, was I had a customer that wanted 150 knives engraved. I even called somebody else that I knew did laser engraving, and even he told me I can't do that job. Why? Well, at the time he said it would have taken him months to complete 150 knives. The lasers back then just weren't that powerful and weren't that fast for small businesses. I'm not saying there weren't lasers out there that couldn't do it, but they really weren't accessible to small business people like myself or my friend. Here we are 3 years later, and man, is this the answer that I was looking for a couple years ago. One, this laser is affordable. Two, it's really easy to use. And three, it is fast. If you've been interested in laser engraving from my past videos and been holding off or thinking that this might be something you want to get into, this right here may be the perfect laser for you. Stay tuned and I'll go over all the things that I think make this one of the very best lasers on the market right now for small businesses, especially knife sharpeners, knife makers, and anybody that wants to engrave metal. All right, so here's me unpacking the ComMarker, and I'm not going to bore you with too much of the unboxing. Assembly was relatively very simple. The machine is just a few parts. So we have this big plate here that the stem mounts to, and then there's a holder for the galvo head, which you mount the galvo head to that holder, and then you can put the entire thing on the big box part you see there at the bottom, which is the guts of the rest of the part of the laser. And as long as you don't do like I did and put it on in the wrong direction the first time, you'll be done probably even quicker than I was. Now, if you don't want the big base part together, you can actually keep it separated and put it somewhere else. So this can be by itself or attached to the base. I like them attached because it gives me access to this emergency off button that you see right here on the front. Now, if you plan to do a lot of rotating things with a rotary, you might want the base plate removed. It might be easier to line up a rotary tool on a table that could be flat with that base plate. But for now, I'm going to go with this configuration. So first up is a gift for one of my followers, Joanna, who won the TS Prof last month. I was a little bit behind in getting her personal engraved knife that I offered, and we're going to be doing that. And I threw in a few extras for her. She wanted to honor her father on the knife, so we're going to do it on a memorial rock as well. Typically, I don't like to run lasers open air. And in this one, you get to see me make another mistake. I forgot to open the gate valve to the vent that sucks the air out of my shop. So there I get it turned on. That's why I have my finger there, and now you can see the smoke is going out. I typically like to put lasers in enclosures, but one, it would be better for filming purposes to not have this in an enclosure. So that's the one reason we decided to do a pipe here. And also because ComMarker at the time didn't have any enclosures available. For this filming and for purposes here, we do not have an enclosure. So if you're working without an enclosure, you need to be sure that you use your protective glasses. And here you can see the finished product of the rock. Now I'm starting to do some testing on the knife engraving. Her father was in the 82nd Airborne, so we wanted to put an airborne logo on there. She left it totally up to me to be as creative as I wanted to with it. She was going to do just his initials on the knife, and I said, oh, we have to do a lot more than just the initials. One of my favorite things to test engravings on are stainless steel business cards, and that's what I'm using here. I'm just testing the graphics and to make sure I like how everything looks before I go and put it on a knife. This is a 0.8 millimeter business card. They're pretty thick, but they give me a very nice representation of what an engraving is going to look like on a knife. So a little bit of discoloration you see is just from a little bit of charring from the engraving. It cleans right off. I typically like to wipe it off with a white Scotch-Brite pad, and it comes out really nice, and here you can see it after it's been cleaned. Up next was to do the actual knife engraving. I did time lapse that. It only took about a minute and a half, but I sped it up so you didn't have to just sit there and watch the whole thing. But you get the picture, and you can see how nice it came out. Again, this needs to be cleaned, so I will wipe it off, and then you can see what it looked like at the end. And there is the final product, and it came out beautiful. And look at the great detail on that engraving as well. So next up, I wanted to do a business card. I do all my own business cards. I like these black aluminum ones. It is a great way to advertise, and I really enjoy making my own. So I am going to do a material test so that I can get the best settings. That's what this is doing now. It's running through a material test. Now, the material test is part of the LightBurn program, and for this laser, you need to use LightBurn for Galvo. I was really happy to see how easy it was. I didn't find LightBurn for Galvo to be very difficult. Other lasers that you use LightBurn on with rails and where the laser's moving around a lot is a little bit more difficult when you're using LightBurn. But for this Galvo head, since it only kind of stays in one spot and the laser shoots the beam where it needs to engrave, it's a pretty simple and straightforward process of using LightBurn. So I decided to stop this a little early. The very bottom row is the slowest moving, and we already could see it was giving us really nice white engraving at a much higher speed. So we didn't need to continue going with it because it would actually probably burn through the card. So I stopped it early. That's what the material test will do for you. So it gives you a really good place to start for picking out an engraving on particular materials. And it never hurts to do these, especially, with something like this, which is not expensive. So this isn't an expensive business card. These only cost a few pennies each. Then I simply examine the card, look for the best engraved block, and then if you follow the columns down on each side, it gives you the power setting and the speed to get that result. Okay, you can see I got one of my black business cards all set up and centered on here. Normally I would run these in a jig, but this is just for test purposes. Everything looks good there. And here we go. We're going to hit start. And you can see that was real time. So you can see how incredibly fast that was. And that is already done. And that literally took seconds. Once you get this set up, you could just throw another card down and just go one after another. So one thing I do for my knife sharpening customers, if they want one, I will provide a loaner if they're going to bring in all of their knives so that they have something to use. Well, unfortunately, I had one of my clients who borrowed a loaner and has yet to bring it back. He picked up his knives and kept the loaner. So I've picked up another knife. So I'm going to put my logo on this knife with the ComMarker, and I'm going to show you the whole process. It's really simple. Here we are. The first thing I'm doing is I'm leveling the knife out. So whenever you engrave something, the more level you can have it, the better off it's going to be. This is nice and level this way, and I'm even checking both directions, and nice and level in the opposite direction. The other thing I need to do is I need to focus the machine. So I'm going to turn the ComMarker on. This laser has autofocus. One of the very best autofocuses I have ever seen in a laser. I'll turn out the light and see. There you go. All right, so now that the light's out, you can see my little dot, and that is the focusing dot. So the ComMarker will autofocus for me. I'm going to touch this button up top here that says autofocus, and it will adjust this laser head. And you can see it's moving up right now, and it's focusing that laser. So now that that laser is focused, I can get on with putting my graphics on here and designing the rest of the logo. And then I'll show you how we place it on here very simply so that you can even see it with this laser, which is really cool. And then we will engrave it, and you can see how simple it is to do a knife engraving. Take a look at LightBurn, and I'm going to show you quickly just a very simple engraving, how it works. I'm not going to get into incredible amounts of detail here because there are tons of really great videos. You don't have to pay for them. There's lots of great trainers on YouTube for learning LightBurn. One that I would recommend is Louisiana Hobby Guy is fantastic. Don't worry about having to learn LightBurn. It's not as difficult as it looks. So I know it can look a little intimidating to some people, but it's quite an easy program. If you just give it a little bit of time, you'll actually learn to love it. Many of the lasers out there on the market do have their own proprietary software, and some of them are very good. The nice thing about LightBurn is it's pretty much the industry standard for engravers. So if you learn this program, about any laser that you have or want to use will probably be compatible with this. So even the ones that have their own software, most of them are capable of working with LightBurn. That's how long they've been the industry leader. So we want to do a simple engraving on this knife. So what I have here, I'm going to just zoom in a little bit here. What we're looking at, a graphic and some text. So this is a graphic that I designed on a different program. If you're concerned about designing things and graphics and stuff like that, there's some really incredible artificial intelligence programs out there that will help you make graphic designs. For example, this right here, I made in a program called Kittle. So you don't have to be a graphic designer to be able to do laser engraving and make some pretty cool designs. I have zero graphic design experience. This whole thing right here on a program called Kittle took me about 2 minutes to make. Very simple. We can do videos on that on another day. We have this design here. I'm going to move it over to the canvas. So this is the engravable area on my ComMarker. So this is set up for that big square plate. Since I'm going to be trying to work fairly close to the middle, I'm just going to move this over to the middle. Now, another way to do that is up top here. You'll see this, it says move selection to. You can click that and we could go move to the center of the page. And now it moved it to the very middle of the laser bed. You could do the same thing with all of your different pieces if things are pieced together. Now, the other thing we're seeing here, you can see there's different colors. This is just so that you can keep things organized and when you're working on things and building them together. And one of the beauties of LightBurn is they give you all these colors that you can make different things. This graphic here of the two knives, the laser, and the text down here is actually compiled of a couple of different things. So if I take this little pointer and I highlight these, I could do what's called group or ungroup something. So this right here is a group of different things. So if I ungroup it, you'll see that I can then click on different parts of it. So I could take the knives, for instance, and I could move them or adjust them. But when I want things to be where they are, once I have them where I'm happy with them, when everything's in the middle, then you can lock them in place. Say you move something accidentally, these little arrows up here, if you'll see if I click back, all the last movements I did, it's kind of moving everything backwards as to what I did. And it just undoes what I did. So this is kind of like undo, move forward, move back. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to group this all together again. I just wanted to show you that it's just a function that you use a lot. Now I grouped it together. So this is all one thing now. So when I click on this, you'll see it all moves as one thing. I can then take aligning objects can be fairly simple too. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to highlight both of these. And what I want to do is I want to center this on top of this. That's what these tools up here are used for. We have align selected objects vertically, which is exactly what I want to do. I want these to be aligned vertically. So I'm going to go align vertical center. You can see it just moved, and I'm going to click back just so you can see it. You see it was a little bit to the left there. Go forward. So then align those vertically. So the middle of this is now aligned with the middle of that. And what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to move this down to where I want it. This can be done with arrow keys, or you could move it yourself. But since it's aligned, I like using the arrow keys instead of my mouse because I could easily bump it, one way or the other. But again, then you can just come up here and use these alignment keys. So once I have these where I want them, and in the sizes that I want, I can even group all of this together if I want to. So now the whole thing will move as one group. All right. So now I'm going to put that in the very center. We're going to move selection, move to page center. So now it's back in the center of the laser bed. Very simple stuff. So the next thing I'm going to show you how we align it on the piece that we're engraving. I'm going to pause the screen recording for now, and I'm going to jump over to the camera that I have on the laser, and I'll show you that. But the next part's going to be done with what's called framing. So when I click frame here, it will show me, and I have a couple different options there of how I can look at it on the laser, and they're very cool and very simple and very easy to use. All right, so we're back at the ComMarker laser. So right now it says boundary, and boundary will give me a square that the engraving will be in, and then I can adjust it. So if we come back over here to the laser, you can see the square is right here, and currently that's going to be too big, so I have to make some adjustments to my graphics and to the location. But before I do that, I want to show you what the other things look like. So here's contour. I'm going to click that on. And contour is really neat. It draws the engraving. So it might be a little hard to see on here, but it's showing me the graphic, and you can see the text isn't even on there. I'm going to move it into place. So now you can see it. I moved it down, and you can see where the writing and stuff would fall. Again, not where I want it, but I'm just giving you an example of what the different options look like. Then there's another one that's called hull, which just gives you like a more basic shape of where that engraving would be. So that's showing you that like they made it like a triangle. It kind of draws a perimeter around that engraving. So that would be very useful, in fact, for lining this one up, because we want to move this up and kind of over. So I'm going to start adjusting it on the computer. So now I'm going to use micro adjustments to move this where I want it. And you can see I got my little kind of upside down triangle. Now the other thing you can do is just simply adjust your piece right on the laser. And that's what I'm doing right now. I'm adjusting that to have that where I want it. Now that I have the main frame close to where I want it, I want to do some adjustments to the graphics and everything else. So I need to go and ungroup these because I want to move a few things around. I don't want to be engraving in these what are called grantins, which are the little cuts on the cutouts on this Santoku knife. So I want to make sure that graphic's just a little bit smaller. I'm going to just move it down some and make some adjustments. So I'm back at my computer, and what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to select this, and I'm going to change it by using these adjustments up here. So right now it's telling me that the size of my object here is 18 by 19. I'm going to shrink this down a little bit. So I'm going to start by going here, and if it's locked, it will keep the same perspective. So you see how this is locked? If this wasn't locked and I change one of these, it's going to be expecting me to change the other one manually. But if you have it locked, I can change one and it keeps this in the proper shape and size. So I'm going to go 17, and you'll see that it automatically adjusted the width. So we're good there. And now I'm just going to move this up a little bit. I got to use my micro adjustments here. There we go. That's good. Now I want to take my lettering and see if I need to adjust that a little bit. And we are currently, its height is roughly 2 millimeters, which should be pretty good. So I'm going to show you another cool feature here. I'm going to go back, I'm going to click this, and I'm just going to turn it off, so we won't see it in the framing. And I know it's this one. See how it says it's the red one? So I'm just going to turn output off. And you see it kind of dimmed it. And I'm going to go back to this piece, and I'm going to go to frame. And this time I'm going to go to contour, and I want to see how it looks on the knife. And it looks good to me, except the text might be a little bit tiny. But we need to keep in mind too, Alexandria Knife Sharpening and Laser Engraving is a really big name to put on a knife. And, you know, I don't want it to go all the way across, but I do want it to be there. And I want it to be readable and easy to see. But I might bump this up just a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here, and I'm just going to go, boop, put the 5 in, and let's see. And I want to take a look now, just going back over to my laser. I'm hitting framing again, contour. And I like that size a little bit better. I just need to adjust it over, because you can see now it's getting into this area where I don't want it. So I'm going to just adjust everything, but I'm pretty happy with that size. So I'm going to click OK. I want to make sure these are centered again. So I'm just going to adjust that. Align vertical center. We're good. I'm going to take the whole thing. I'm going to put my output back on this one again, and I'm just going to do a minor adjustment. I'm going to group these together by selecting both, grouping them, and now I just did one little click to the right, and I'm going to take a look and see where that is. So back to framing. Contour. It's not bad, but it's still not exactly where I want it. One more over to the right. And that's pretty good. My laser engraving is just barely touching the top of the granton. And it's just right there. But I'm okay with that. And now I'm just going to put my settings in for this engraving. So I know I like 50% power and 50% speed. So here's my speed, here's my power. They're close enough. I could leave them there, but I will just make them exactly 50 and 50. The frequency 20 has worked very well. Frequency will change the color and look of engravings. We're just going for black here, and 20 and 30 will all give me black. As you start to get into the higher numbers, you can get some colors. And at 400 lines per centimeter, that should make my tiny little text readable. So I'm going to go with that, and I'm good with that. So now I'm just going to come over to this one, and I want to check this. So the black is my other text. We're at 50-50 again. I'm going to up my lines per inch to around 400. Let's make the frequencies match. The other one was at 20. We'll keep that at 20, and everything else looks good. If I want to preview it, I can come up here and click this button, and it's going to show me a preview. And that is exactly how I would like this to look. If you hit play, it's just going to show you how it's going to do that engraving. And now I can go to start. Now when I hit start here, it is going to start the engraving, and you can see our boundary block. All right, there's my engraving, and I'll show you how amazing this is when we take a look at the engraving up close. So I'm going to turn the light back on here. I'm going to turn the laser off because it has a pretty loud fan. That's to protect the laser and keep it cool while it runs. And let's take a zoomed in look here. So right now it doesn't look perfect because we have to clean it. Lasers vaporize the material that they hit. And that's why you would think, if you saw this right now, it looks like it's a little bit blurry, but that's only because we just need to clean it off. There's lots of ways you can clean off your engraving. You can use isopropyl alcohol. I like these little white pieces of Scotch-Brite when I'm doing a knife engraving. And what I'm going to do here, let's see if I can show you on camera here. I'm just going to kind of wipe it a bit. And I'm going with the grain of the knife. And it's basically just knocking the dust out. I mean, it's truly amazing what lasers can do as far as the detail and everything that they can engrave, even super tiny. So this can do rings. You know, if you had to do an inscription inside of a ring, this can do that. So it's an absolutely amazing laser. All right, so let's go on to some other engraving things. Hey everyone, so here's the results of my coin. Just so everyone knows, this is the first coin I've ever made. I've never done a brass coin before. And it is an image of my father's military picture. So that's a picture of my dad. And there is the image on the coin. I made one little mistake on it. I had to go back and do it a second time. So you can see a little weird edge around the very front part of where like his face is facing. But I was quite impressed with how well it actually polished up with jewelry buffers. And I think you could really get almost like a newly minted look if you really wanted to. Now, when it comes to coins, there is so much you can do with these things. There are a ton of YouTube videos on how to age them, patina them, and make them look really awesome. But that's, you know, for a first attempt, having never done a coin with a laser before, I was really impressed with what the ComMarker did there. So that's really cool. And I'll just show you quick. You have to make what's called a 3D depth map, and I'll just show you what that looked like. So that's the depth map of the image that I used to put on the coin. And I was pretty happy with the results. Very cool. And I'm sure with some practice, I could probably get a lot better at making coins, even though it's not the typical thing that I do with my lasers. All right, everyone. In closing, I wanted to show you something that I found out that I was really happy to find that I'm going to share. I'm not going to go into crazy detail because it could be a video all of its own, but I actually found out that ComMarker, their rotary system, will work with some other rotaries. And I already owned an xTool RA2, which I absolutely love. It is a fantastic rotary for doing cups and tumblers and round things. And it's got a pitch control, and it's really just an awesome rotary. By making a couple changes inside of this box, and the fact that the RA2 comes with 3 different connectors, but it had a connector that could connect up to the ComMarker, I was able to get the RA2 from xTool to work with my ComMarker B6 Fiber Laser. If you happen to own a rotary from another company, you could check to see if yours will work as well. I'll leave it at that, but I am going to show you the one thing that I did with it that was just awesome. And let me show you what I did. For my knife sharpening fans out there, here is the new Vevor. And what I did for the tracking, to help improve my tracking, is I engraved a diamond pattern and I etched the outside edges of all of my wheels. And you can see I even took off the Wen wheel, and this now tracking beautifully just from me etching those wheels. There's no shortage of things that you can do with a fiber laser. And I also showed earlier in another video that Shun knife handle. I used a laser to cut a notch in a piece so that I could unscrew a stuck part and be able to put a handle back together. And that was also done with the new ComMarker B6 laser. It's not just for engravings, but trust me, you will find other uses and things for your laser. So let's do one final thing here. Let's crunch some numbers. The current price of a ComMarker B6 Fiber Laser is $1,954. ComMarker's been nice enough to give my followers a 5% discount, a code at which I'll share at the end of this video. That makes the current cost right around $1,856. Now, one of the things you have to figure out when you start laser engraving is a minimum engraving price for something. Mine runs around $25, but sometimes I discount that for multiple items. So let's do the math. We have our complete price of $1,856. If we were to divide that by the $20, that's 92.8, let's say 93. So we would have to do 93 items to break even. If we divided that by 12 months, it's roughly 7.75 or 8 items in a month at $20 to break even on this laser engraver. So let's take a look at some of the current competition out there. You would have the Laser Pecker 5, which is a 20-watt fiber laser, and that comes in at $2,969 currently, and its regular price is all the way up at $3,200, but it's currently on sale. So I think the next thing we should do is compare it to probably the biggest competition out there, which is xTool's F1 Ultra. Its current price is $3,699. It's also on sale. So let's do some math here. Let's take the price of an F1 Ultra and subtract the cost of a ComMarker B6, and we're left with $1,843. So you could literally buy almost 2 ComMarker B6s for the price of one F1 Ultra. Now, why is that important? Well, I'm going to compare a couple other things to you. So let's take a look first at what you're not getting with a ComMarker B6 and you are getting with the other two lasers. The main difference would be what you see right here in the middle, this 20-watt blue diode laser. Now, 20-watt blue diode lasers are used for soft materials, woods, cork. You can engrave some hard things like slate and different things with them. They can cut wood. They're very good at cutting wood. And they are fantastic machines for people that like to work with thin laminates. It can engrave some acrylics, mostly ones that are colored. It can't do clear acrylics. But here's why I don't think these machines are a great value compared to the ComMarker B6. So let's take a look at what you can get in a 20-watt diode laser for that $1,843 you're saving by not buying an F1 or a Laser Pecker 5. So my S1 20-watt laser, which you see here, is one of my favorite blue diode lasers. I love this machine for doing tumblers, for cutting wood, for doing coasters. It does just lots of stuff. And let's take a look at the price. And also keep in mind, this thing can engrave a much larger surface than that F1 Ultra or Laser Pecker 5 could. So let's take a look at the price. For the basic bundle, for $1,399, you're getting a much larger blue laser that's enclosed. Why don't we take a look at the next bundle up and see what you get with that? So the next bundle is the deluxe bundle, and it's $1,949. That is $93 more than what you saved. So if you spent $100 more, you would get an air assist, a fire suppression system, a rotary, the extended base, an auto conveyor for doing really large items, and a honeycomb grid. So if I was purchasing today, I would much rather be buying a ComMarker B6 to be doing my metal engraving and a separate blue diode laser that was a dedicated blue diode laser like an S1 and all these additional accessories. Now, also keep in mind, there are many great laser companies out there. So you can pick up an even far less expensive blue diode laser in the 20-watt range with all these accessories for even less. So here's a few blue diode lasers that might be worth looking into. The We Create Vision is a fantastic machine with an autofocus system and automatic height adjusting. The Creality Falcon 2 now has a enclosed system with a camera and is a fantastic laser in the 22-watt range. And the Lasermatic 2 also has a camera and an enclosed system. And these are all great lasers that might be worth spending your money on, where you can get a lot more options and accessories for the same amount of money or less money if you're willing to go with a different brand. Thank you everyone for taking the time to watch my review of the ComMarker B6 Fiber Laser. And thank you to ComMarker for sending it to me. I truly believe that this laser will be a fantastic addition to many small businesses that want to get into laser engraving. In fact, I think it's so great. I believe there will be many businesses built solely around this tool. There will be people that will do nothing but start an engraving business, and you could definitely start it with this machine. I also hope that my point about blue lasers and fiber lasers and the combination of a blue laser and fiber laser in one unit came across clearly. If you're going to be purchasing a laser to either start a business or use in your business, you really need to think about how you're going to use your lasers. Those combination machines can be great under certain circumstances, but they're not always great for every circumstance. One thing I have found in my business is that often when I've bought a particular machine, whether it be for sharpening or in laser engraving, thinking that it's going to answer every one of my needs, it often doesn't. because of many different factors, and some of them depend on how your business is structured. I see those combination machines fantastic for craft shows, fairs, places where you might be needing to do engraving of different items on location. But for a shop like mine, where my customers all come to me, I haven't found them to be as useful as I wanted them to be. I've actually found it to be more useful to have a machine that's solely dedicated to doing one thing and one thing really well. Let's face it, if someone comes in with 10 knives to be engraved, I can do them very quickly on this machine. But then if someone comes in with 16 tumblers they want engraved, and I have to use that same machine, but now I have to configure it in a completely different way, that can be extremely time consuming. And then it might be followed with, again, someone else coming in right behind them wanting knives engraved. And now you're switching your machine and gear back all day long. I've actually gotten to the point where I'm trying to get my individual lasers to be dedicated machines for specific things. I'm actually planning on making a dedicated laser just for tumblers. So my point is simply, you really need to think about the structure of your business and the use of your specific laser, and keep in mind that even though the machine might be capable of doing all kinds of things, it may not be practical given your particular business setup to be able to use it for all those different things because of time constraints. Have a great day, everybody. I'll put the codes to the discount in this video and in the description of the video. And thank you for watching, and I'll catch you again soon on the next one. The discount code for the ComMarker discount is ALXSHARPEN. And I also wanted to thank you guys. We recently just hit 14,000 subscribers. That's just awesome. And if you haven't yet done so, please like and subscribe to the channel. We really appreciate all of you out there helping us grow.